The biting wind, thick with the acrid tang of coal smoke and desperation, whipped around Anya Petrova as she stepped off the overnight train. East Berlin, 1988. Even the name felt like a shroud, a whispered secret in the hushed corners of the Eastern Bloc. Anya, a woman etched with the quiet resilience of a Soviet citizen who'd learned to navigate the labyrinthine rules of the state, clutched her worn leather satchel a little tighter. Her eyes, the color of a winter sky, scanned the grim utilitarian facade of the station, a stark contrast to the vibrant, almost dizzying advertisements she'd glimpsed on smuggled magazines from the West. She was here on a mission so outlandish, so steeped in the clandestine absurdity that only the KGB could orchestrate, that she'd initially dismissed it as a fever dream. A secret Coca-Cola factory in East Berlin. The irony was a bitter pill, even for someone accustomed to the state's peculiar brand of propaganda. Coca-Cola, the very embodiment of American capitalism, the liquid symbol of everything they were supposed to despise, being manufactured by them. Her contact, a man named Sergei Volkov, was supposed to meet her on Platform 3, near the departures board displaying a dizzying array of destinations that in reality were largely unreachable for the average East Berliner. Anya's heart hammered against her ribs, a nervous drumbeat against the metallic clang of arriving trains and the low murmur of hurried conversations. She'd rehearsed the passphrase 100 times in the cramped confines of her Moscow apartment. "The bear sleeps soundly tonight." The response, "But the honey is sweet." Minutes stretched into an eternity. Anya's gaze darted from face to face, searching for a man who fit the sparse description. Mid-50s? A slight limp? A scar above his left eyebrow. The crowd thinned, the last stragglers disappearing into the gray labyrinth of the city. A knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. Had she been betrayed? Was this a trap? The KGB had a long memory and a talent for making people disappear. Just as despair began to creep in, a man detached himself from the shadows near a towering pillar. He was older than she'd expected, his face a roadmap of hardship, and yes, a faint, almost imperceptible limp accompanied his measured steps. A thin white scar bisected his left eyebrow. Anya's breath hitched. Sergei Volkov. He approached her with a cautious, almost furtive air. His eyes, the color of faded denim, met hers, and a flicker of recognition, quickly suppressed, passed between them. He didn't offer a handshake, just a curt nod. "The bear sleeps soundly tonight?" Anya whispered, her voice barely audible above the station's din. Volkov's lips curved into a thin, humorless smile. "But the honey is sweet." He gestured with his chin towards the exit. "We should not linger here." The journey to the factory was a blur of darkened streets, the ubiquitous Trabant cars chugging along like sputtering tin cans, and the oppressive presence of uniformed guards at every checkpoint. Volkov spoke little, his pronouncements clipped and pragmatic. He explained, in broad strokes, the genesis of the project. It was a strategic move, a bizarre counteroffensive against the pervasive cultural influence of the West. While the state officially condemned Coca-Cola, a select few within the inner circles recognized its magnetic pull. They believed that by controlling its production, they could not only undermine American influence, but also create a highly profitable black market venture, with all profits funneled directly to the state. "It's a delicate dance, Comrade Petrova," Volkov said, his voice low and gravelly as they navigated a particularly desolate industrial district. "We fight the West with its own weapons, and in this case, the weapon is fizzy, brown sugar water." Anya suppressed a shiver. The absurdity of it all was almost overwhelming. She, a chemist by training, a woman who had spent years perfecting the synthesis of essential medicines, was now being tasked with replicating a sugary beverage, But the KGB didn't deal in logic. They dealt in results, however unconventional. They arrived at their destination, a nondescript, heavily fortified building on the outskirts of the city, its concrete walls scarred and weathered, its windows barred. It looked like any other industrial complex, designed to blend seamlessly into the grim landscape of East Berlin. But the sheer number of armed guards, the high fences topped with barbed wire, and the silent, watchful eyes of the sentry boxes told a different story. This was no ordinary factory. Volkov produced a series of passes, his movements precise and practiced, and they were admitted. The air inside was thick with a cloying sweetness, a scent that Anya recognized instantly. A scent that had been the subject of countless whispered rumors and clandestine observations. It was the unmistakable aroma of Coca-Cola. The factory floor was a hive of activity, a stark contrast to the hushed secrecy of their arrival. Rows of gleaming stainless steel vats, complex machinery humming with a rhythmic pulse, and workers in white overalls moving with an efficiency that spoke of strict discipline. Anya's eyes widened as she took it all in. This was not some makeshift operation. This was a sophisticated, modern production facility. Volkov led her through the labyrinthine corridors, past the bottling lines, the syrup mixing stations, and the quality control labs. The workers, their faces impassive, barely glanced at them. They were accustomed to the presence of superiors, to the constant ebb and flow of authority. "Your role, Comrade Petrova," Volkov explained as they entered a sterile, brightly lit laboratory, "is to ensure the consistency and quality of the product. We have the formula, of course, but replicating it perfectly, batch after batch, requires a skilled hand and a discerning palate." He gestured to a series of beakers and vials filled with various colored liquids. "Our chemists here are good, but they lack your depth of understanding." Anya felt a surge of professional pride, quickly tempered by the strangeness of her task. She was a scientist, not a beverage engineer. Yet the challenge was undeniable. The formula for Coca-Cola was famously guarded, a closely held secret. How had the KGB obtained it? And more importantly, how had they managed to recreate it with such apparent fidelity? Volkov, sensing her unspoken questions, offered a wry smile. "Let's just say, Comrade Petrova, that the West has its spies, and we have ours. And sometimes, the most valuable intelligence comes in liquid form." He then handed her a small, unmarked bottle filled with a dark, viscous liquid. "This is our proprietary syrup concentrate. Your task is to analyze it, understand its composition, and then develop a process to ensure that every batch produced here is indistinguishable from the original." Anya took the bottle, her fingers tracing its smooth, cool surface. The weight of it felt significant, a tangible symbol of the immense resources and clandestine operations that had led to its creation. She was no longer just Anya Petrova, chemist from Moscow. She was now Anya Petrova, KGB operative, tasked with perpetuating a delicious, capitalist deception within the heart of the Soviet Union. The bear was indeed sleeping soundly, but its paw was reaching out, not for honey, but for the sweet, intoxicating fizz of American dreams. The mission had truly begun. Anya Petrova stood on the cold, wind-swept platform, the biting East Berlin air doing little to dispel the lingering disorientation. Sergei Volkov's words, delivered with a clipped pragmatism that offered no room for argument, echoed in her mind. "Your role, Comrade Petrova, is to ensure the product is indistinguishable. The Americans' most potent weapon is fizzy, brown sugar water, and we will turn it against them." The sheer audacity of it, the clandestine absurdity, still hadn't fully settled. A chemical engineer, trained to discern the subtle nuances of compounds, now tasked with replicating and perfecting the taste of a capitalist icon. It felt less like a mission and more like a fever dream. Sergei, his slight limp more pronounced as he gestured for her to follow, led her away from the sparse gathering of arriving passengers. The train station, like everything else in this part of the city, was a study in grim utilitarianism. Gray concrete, functional lighting that cast long, stark shadows, and the pervasive scent of coal smoke hung heavy in the air. Anya clutched her satchel tighter, its worn leather a familiar comfort against the swirling uncertainty. The weight of the proprietary syrup concentrate, sealed in a nondescript metal canister within, felt both immense and ludicrous. This was the key, the closely held secret that made the entire operation possible. Their journey to the factory was a silent testament to East Berlin's subdued reality. They rode in a nondescript, heavily fortified black sedan, its engine emitting a low thrum that seemed to vibrate with the city's underlying tension. Anya watched the passing scenery through the tinted windows, rows of stark apartment blocks, their facades scarred and weathered, punctuated by the ubiquitous, sputtering tin cans that were Trabant cars. Barricades and sentry boxes were a constant, unnerving presence, a stark reminder of the pervasive control. The contrast between the oppressive gray landscape and the vibrant, almost dizzying concept of Coca-Cola production was a cognitive dissonance Anya was still struggling to reconcile. The facility is located in what was once an industrial district, now largely decommissioned, Sergei explained, his voice a low murmur that barely disturbed the tense quiet. It allowed for effective isolation and security. No one goes in or out without authorization, and the perimeter is considerable. His humorless smile was a fleeting flicker on his weathered face. We blend seamlessly into the grim landscape. As they neared their destination, the atmosphere grew heavier. The streets became narrower, the buildings more dilapidated, and the sense of abandonment more profound. Then, rising from the desolation, a stark, imposing structure emerged. It was a factory, undoubtedly, but one designed for secrecy rather than production. High chain-link fences topped with barbed wire enclosed a sprawling complex. Sentry boxes stood at regular intervals, their occupants silent, watchful eyes scanning the perimeter. The main building itself was a brutalist edifice of concrete and steel, its windows dark and uninviting, its entire presence radiating an aura of forbidding control. It looked less like a place of commerce and more like a high-security detention center. "Welcome to your new laboratory, Comrade Petrova," Sergei said, his tone devoid of any irony. Or, perhaps more accurately, our contribution to the ideological struggle. The car pulled up to a heavily reinforced gate. A guard, his face obscured by the shadow of his helmet, approached, his hand resting casually on the rifle slung across his chest. Sergei produced a small, laminated card, which the guard examined with a practiced, almost bored air before nodding and gesturing for them to proceed. The gate clanged open with a metallic thud, and they drove into the heart of the compound. Inside, the air was different. The acrid tang of coal smoke was replaced by a faint, almost sterile scent, overlaid with something else. A subtle, sweet aroma that Anya couldn't quite place at first. It was a smell that hinted at sugar, at something manufactured for pleasure, a stark contrast to the bleakness outside. The factory floor was a hive of activity, but it was a hushed, disciplined activity. Uniformed workers moved with precise, practiced efficiency, their faces impassive, accustomed to the constant ebb and flow of authority. Gleaming stainless steel vats, complex machinery humming with a low, rhythmic pulse, and miles of gleaming pipes snaked across the vast space. It was, Anya had to admit, a marvel of engineering, albeit for the most peculiar of purposes. Sergei led her through a labyrinthine corridor, the walls painted a dull, institutional gray. They passed by what appeared to be bottling lines, their rhythmic clatter a stark counterpoint to the hushed secrecy that permeated the facility. Further on, she glimpsed syrup mixing stations, where large quantities of liquid were being processed, and then, finally, they arrived at a door marked simply, Laboratory. The laboratory was a stark contrast to the factory floor. It was sterile, brightly lit, and equipped with state-of-the-art analytical instruments. Glassware gleamed, and the air was clean, devoid of the pervasive industrial smells. Anya felt a flicker of professional pride. This was her domain, a place where logic and science held sway, even if the ultimate purpose was so unconventional. "Your workspace, Comrade Petrova," Sergei said, gesturing to a well-appointed bench. "We have replicated the necessary equipment based on samples obtained by our best operatives. The proprietary syrup concentrate is here." He indicated a sturdy, locked metal cabinet. "Access is granted only to you and myself. Your task is to analyze this concentrate, understand its composition, and then oversee the production to ensure absolute fidelity to the original. Consistency and quality are paramount. The taste must be perfect. Any deviation, any hint of impurity, and the entire operation is compromised." He retrieved the canister from a secure vault, its smooth, cool surface a stark contrast to the rough-hewn reality of East Berlin. Anya's hands, usually steady, trembled slightly as she took it. This was it, the tangible symbol of their bizarre counter-offensive, the liquid embodiment of a delicious capitalist deception. "We have achieved a remarkable degree of accuracy," Sergei continued, his gaze sharp as he watched her. "Our beverage engineers have worked tirelessly, but your discerning palate, your depth of understanding as a chemist is essential for the final refinement. The KGB doesn't do things by halves, Comrade Petrova. We have invested immense resources into this venture." He paused, a hint of something akin to admiration in his voice. "To replicate Coca-Cola, to produce it with such apparent fidelity, is a testament to our capabilities. It's an intoxicating fizz of American dreams, manufactured right here, under our noses." Anya nodded, her mind already racing. The challenge was immense, almost overwhelming. How had the KGB acquired such a precise sample of the proprietary syrup concentrate? The formula was famously guarded, a closely held secret that had eluded competitors for decades. The fact that they possessed it, let alone the means to replicate it on an industrial scale, spoke volumes about the organization's reach and resources. It was a bitter pill to swallow, this realization of the enemy's effectiveness, but it also fueled a strange, nascent spark of professional curiosity within her. "The operational details are simple," Sergei explained, his voice regaining its pragmatic edge. "You will work here, in the lab, analyzing the incoming concentrate and monitoring the production batches. We will have a team of dedicated workers, overseen by a trusted foreman. They are aware of the sensitive nature of the operation, but not its full context. They believe they are producing a special tonic for export, a unique Soviet concoction." He allowed himself another wry smile. "The truth, as always, is far more interesting and profitable." He then explained the logistics. The secure transportation of the syrup concentrate from its undisclosed source, the daily production quotas, the discrete channels through which the finished product would be distributed into the black market, both within East Germany and potentially beyond. Anya listened intently, processing the information, her initial skepticism slowly giving way to a grudging acceptance of the mission's reality. This wasn't just about ideology or profit. It was a complex, multifaceted operation, a delicate dance of espionage, chemical engineering, and industrial production. "There will be inspections, of course," Sergei warned, his tone hardening. "From Moscow. They will want to see the results. They will want to taste the product. Your reputation, Comrade Petrova, will be on the line. But more importantly, the KGB's reputation will be on the line." He gestured towards a small enclosed cubicle within the laboratory. Your living quarters are adjacent. Basic, but secure. You will be expected to remain within the compound for the duration of your assignment, unless explicitly authorized to leave. Communication with the outside world is strictly prohibited. Your focus must be here, on the fizzy, brown sugar water. Anya finally looked at the canister Sergei had placed on the lab bench. The label was plain, unadorned, a stark contrast to the vibrant red and white logo it was meant to emulate. She reached out, her fingers tracing the cool metal. It felt impossibly heavy, laden with secrets, with ideology, with the sheer, undeniable strangeness of it all. She was a chemist, a scientist, and here she was, standing at the precipice of a clandestine operation that was both deeply Soviet and utterly, undeniably American. The bear was indeed sleeping soundly, but it was now dreaming of Coca-Cola. Anya's initial skepticism had been replaced by a gnawing unease. The sheer scale of the operation was overwhelming, a testament to the immense resources the KGB was willing to pour into this bizarre counteroffensive. Here, in the heart of the German Democratic Republic, a fortress of Soviet ingenuity was churning out a potent symbol of American capitalism. The irony was so thick, it was almost a physical presence, like the cloying sweetness that now permeated the air. Sergei watched her, his expression unreadable behind the perpetually narrowed eyes. "You seem contemplative, Comrade Petrova." His voice was a low murmur, barely audible above the rhythmic pulse of the machinery. "It's a lot to take in, Comrade Volkov," Anya replied, her voice carefully neutral. She gestured vaguely towards the gleaming stainless steel vats, the intricate network of pipes, the bottling lines that moved with a hypnotic, almost dizzying speed. The efficiency, the fidelity. "Our engineers are the best, Anya," Sergei said, a hint of pride creeping into his tone. "They can replicate anything. And the formula, as you know, is our advantage. The original, obtained through less conventional means." He offered a wry smile, a fleeting glimpse of the man beneath the KGB operative. "The Americans guard their secrets fiercely, but not fiercely enough, it seems." The bear was indeed sleeping soundly when we acquired this particular prize. Anya nodded, her gaze sweeping over the rows of workers. They moved with a practiced, almost robotic efficiency. Their faces impassive, accustomed to the labyrinthine rules and strict discipline of the compound. Most of them, she suspected, believed they were producing some vital, undisclosed Soviet beverage. Perhaps an energy drink for the military or a new medicinal tonic. The truth, she knew, was far more delicious and far more deceptive. "And the distribution?" Anya pressed, her professional curiosity overriding her lingering apprehension. "How do we get this beverage into the hands of the West?" Sergei's smile widened, a spark of something akin to amusement in his eyes. "That, Comrade Petrova, is where the true artistry lies. We have established a surprisingly robust black market network, smuggled across the border, sold to opportunistic traders, infiltrated into legitimate Western supply chains. It's a profitable venture, and it serves a dual purpose, denying the Americans a portion of their market, and more importantly, sowing a different kind of seed." "A seed of what?" Anya asked, her brow furrowed. "Doubt, Anya." "Confusion, a subtle erosion of their cultural dominance. Imagine the headlines if this were ever exposed, KGB's secret Coca-Cola factory. It would be a propaganda coup of immeasurable value, a testament to our ability to infiltrate and subvert even their most iconic symbols. And of course," he added, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "the profits are substantial, funds that can be redirected to other, more pressing operations." Anya felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. She was a chemist, a scientist. Her world was one of precision, of verifiable results. Now, she was a cog in a machine designed for espionage and economic warfare, her skills being used to craft a delicious capitalist deception. The fizzy brown sugar water, so ubiquitous in the West, was now a weapon. Her immediate task, however, was far more grounded in her expertise. "The syrup concentrate," she said, turning back to the gleaming vats. "I need to analyze it thoroughly. Ensure that our replication is, as you say, indistinguishable." Sergei led her towards a smaller, more sterile laboratory, tucked away in a corner of the main production floor. The air here was different, filtered and cool, devoid of the sugary aroma. It was a space of quiet contemplation, of scientific rigor. Gleaming countertops, a complex array of analytical equipment, and shelves lined with beakers and test tubes. It was a familiar environment, yet charged with an unsettling new purpose. "This is your domain, Anya," Sergei said, gesturing to a workbench. "We have provided you with all the necessary reagents and equipment. Your objective is to confirm the precise composition of the proprietary syrup concentrate. We have our own samples, of course, but your discerning palate, your analytical acumen, will be the ultimate arbiter of quality." Anya felt a surge of professional pride, even amidst her apprehension. Her skills were valuable, even if the context was bizarre. She donned a crisp white lab coat, the fabric feeling strangely alien against her skin. The weight of the mission settled upon her. Her reputation, her career, and perhaps even her freedom depended on her ability to perform this task flawlessly. She began by examining the sample of the concentrate Sergei provided. It was a thick, viscous liquid, a deep amber hue. The aroma, even in this concentrated form, was intensely sweet, with subtle hints of spice and citrus. It was the unmistakable scent of Coca-Cola, a scent that had always been associated with vibrant, almost dizzying American optimism. A scent that now felt like a whispered secret in the gray labyrinth of East Berlin. Using a pipette, she carefully extracted a small amount and placed it on a slide for microscopic examination. The structure was complex, a blend of sugars, acids, flavorings, and coloring agents. Her mind, trained to dissect and understand chemical compounds, began to work. She meticulously cataloged the ingredients, cross-referencing them with her extensive knowledge of food chemistry. Sergei observed her, his silence a constant, watchful presence. He didn't interfere, but his gaze was sharp, missing nothing. He knew the stakes. Any deviation, any detectable difference, could compromise the entire operation. The KGB had invested a fortune in acquiring the formula and establishing this facility. The bear might be sleeping, but its slumber was a carefully orchestrated deception. Days blurred into a routine of analysis and observation. Anya worked tirelessly, her days filled with the hum of machinery and the sharp, acrid tang of chemicals. She meticulously tested the pH levels, the sugar content, the precise ratios of citric acid and phosphoric acid. She used gas chromatography to identify the volatile aromatic compounds, the subtle notes of vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg that gave Coca-Cola its distinctive character. The original formula, she discovered, was remarkably complex, a testament to decades of refinement and proprietary secrecy. It was a delicate dance of chemical interactions designed to create a flavor profile that was both intensely satisfying and subtly addictive. Her task was not merely to replicate, but to achieve an apparent fidelity that was, in every measurable way, indistinguishable from the original. One afternoon, while analyzing a batch of the finished product, a bottle of the freshly brewed Soviet Coca-Cola, indistinguishable in appearance from its Western counterpart, she noticed something. A faint, almost imperceptible difference in the effervescence. The bubbles, while present, seemed to dissipate slightly faster than she remembered from her brief, illicit encounters with the real thing in West Berlin. She ran the test again, her heart hammering against her ribs, a nervous drumbeat against the steady rhythm of the factory. The results were the same. The carbonation level was slightly lower. A minor detail, perhaps, one that most consumers would never notice. But to Anya, a chemist tasked with absolute precision, it was a flaw. She presented her findings to Sergei that evening, her voice tinged with a mixture of professional concern and a strange, almost guilty sense of accomplishment. "Comrade Volkov," she began, holding up a report, "there is a slight discrepancy in the carbonation levels of the finished product. The bubbles dissipate more rapidly than in the Western version." Sergei examined the report, his expression unreadable. He was silent for a long moment, the only sound the distant clanging of machinery. Anya braced herself for a reprimand, for the KGB's infamous intolerance of failure. Then he looked up, a flicker of something. Amusement? Respect? In his eyes. "Anya Petrova," he said, his voice surprisingly mild. "You have proven yourself a most valuable asset. The Americans, in their arrogance, believe their formula is a closely held secret, guarded by layers of corporate intrigue. Yet they overlook the fundamental physics of carbonation, the precise pressures required for optimal dissolution. Our engineers, in their pragmatic efficiency, have prioritized speed of production over perfect effervescence. A minor concession, perhaps, in the grand scheme of things." He paused, tapping the report with a calloused finger. "But you are correct. It is a detail, and details matter. We will adjust the carbonation process, a simple matter of increasing the pressure in the bottling lines." "Thank you, Anya. You have saved us from a potentially embarrassing oversight." Anya felt a wave of relief wash over her, quickly followed by a renewed sense of the strangeness of her situation. She was here, in a secret KGB factory, ensuring that a bottle of Coca-Cola had the perfect amount of fizz, all for the sake of undermining the West. It was a surreal, almost comical mission. "And the workers?" she asked, her gaze drifting back towards the production floor. "They are unaware of the true purpose?" "Absolutely," Sergei confirmed. "They believe they are contributing to a vital Soviet initiative. Their loyalty is assured through a combination of patriotic fervor and strict